All right, welcome everybody here. Gussapolooza 2024. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, let's hear it, right? All right. We are super blessed today to be joined by Matt Bacon. He's all the way up from New York, right? Berlin? Holy, I was going to say a swear word, but okay, so. Oh, you can go ahead. So for our folks here and our folks at home on the live stream, MTAV is doing an amazing job of the live streaming, and they're sponsoring this event and provided all this gear. So let's give it up for MTAV, please. Multi-Tech Audio Visual, great sponsor. A few words about Matt. He's a cigar chomping consultant, normally on, if you've seen him on Instagram. He's an AR man. He's a manager specializing in heavy metal. He's worked with artists ranging from pop stars like Mitski, Boy Genius, to rock icons like Coven, Arthur Brown, and bands such as Killswitch Engage, Whitechapel, Neurosis, and Apocalyptica. He collaborates with labels like Prophecy Productions, Blacklight Media, Reigning Phoenix Music, and Tank Crimes. And through his Instagram, Bacon Bits, if you haven't seen it, please subscribe. It's amazing. Just so many great sound bites, so much great information. I love it. He offers, and his podcast, Dumb and Dumbest, he offers bands practical advice, and you need to see it. Countless tours, record releases, signed deals under his belt. He thrives in the music industry, and we're honored to have him here at Gussapolooza. So give him a warm welcome.
Are you sick and tired of posting Instagram reels that get like 25 views and spending all this time on posts that get like 3 likes and just continually creating and feeling like you're posting into the void and just wondering like, why doesn't anyone fucking care? We're going to talk about that today. And by the way, for y'all outside, if you want to come in, we do have some more seats. You can also just like bail if you need to bail, it's fine. Anyway, so for those of you who don't know me, which I think this is mostly a Bacon Spits watching crowd, but hell yeah. But I was born in France. I lived in New York for a really long time. Now I live in Berlin, as we all just learned. But I think the really important thing about me is I'm a DIY lifer. Like, I've been doing this, I've been coming to events like this and putting on shows and all that stuff since I was like 14. Like, in high school, I was running a label, I was writing reviews on a blog, on multiple blogs, you know, interviewing bands. I like had a whole like almost famous life as a teenager. It was very weird. And eventually, that turned into creating Bacon Spits. After a friend of mine was like, you know, if you make a video every day about what you do for work, your life will change in a year. And my life did change, and now I get to do stuff like this. And, you know, just the other day, I hit 95,000 followers, so it's becoming a thing, you know, to say the least. But today what we're going to talk about, today what we're going to talk about in terms of content creation is how all you need is a value strategy. And what this means is we're going to talk about how to create meaningful content that resonates with your audience. And we're going to talk about how to use that content to blow up your band, the same way many of your favorite artists who've broken in the last 10 years have. Anything from Chappelle Roan to Bridge City Sinners to Lorna Shore. All these artists who sort of fundamentally understand how social media works and how to use it to become a focal point of the scene. Artists who sat down and been like, oh, okay, here's how I connect with the audience. Here's how I take that audience to a higher place. And here's what we do to kind of elevate them and the people around me. You know, and that's what I really want to break down today as we get into it. So what we're not going to focus on today is a few things. First of all, we're not going to worry about the nitty-gritty. We're not going to worry about, like, here's exactly how you set up meta conversion ads, right? Like, we don't need, that's too complicated for this 35-minute talk, right? And we're also not going to talk about, like, the consequences of big data and these powerful corporations and all that other stuff. Like, that's scary, but I don't really have an answer. And yeah, it's bad, but like, this is the hand we've been dealt. So let's go from there, you know? Because what we are going to be talking about today is focusing on overall approach. And this idea that people and platforms, you know, people stay the same, platforms change. And a lot of the concepts we're talking about today in terms of marketing, in terms of how to promote yourself, all of that stuff has been relevant for the last 60 years, and it'll keep being relevant. You know, with AI, with whatever changes, with any new social media that comes up, it's all the same shit. So the value strategy comes down into a few core concepts, right? And what this really means is the fact that, first and foremost, is that people only really care about themselves. They care about content they find engaging. They care about content that educates them. And most importantly, people care about status, right? They care about finding things that elevate them socially, be it like, oh, hey, I'm part of this cool in-group, and that's really important, right? And you're communicating that with your content. They also care about stuff that educates them. That's why a lot of y'all watch my videos, you know? But they care about things that help them get to a higher place. We're gonna talk about how to do that with your content more than anything else, right? And what that means is you're focusing on the value of the content. You're focusing on, okay, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how we're going to connect with people in a way that brings them value, right? It's not this idea of me, me, me. It's this idea of you, you, you. How do we reach out to fans individually and make them feel the love and make them feel like, oh, hey, this is going somewhere deeper. Do you know what I mean? And like I said before, people don't change. A lot of these marketing strategies, some variant of them was used in the 60s. You know, some variant of them will be used in 2035, right? It's just that the platforms we use to create the content, the platforms we use to market ourselves, those things change. But what I can confidently say is right now, it's never been easier to get the word out about yourself as a musician because there's so many tools at your fingertips. And because, as we're gonna talk about later, a lot of your favorite artists, their entire content strategy is based on CapCut and a cell phone. You know, and we're going to talk about exactly how to do that and how to resonate with people just using tools like that, tools that we all have that are free. So, there we go. My epiphany with a lot of this came from doing Bacon Spits. Because for a long time before that, I had been doing music marketing. And that was cool. But I hadn't really thought it through on like a fundamental level, if that makes sense. That is to say, I was putting out stuff that looked like this, you know, me and my cat hanging out. It was a good time, but it didn't really communicate who I was or what I was trying to do. It was just me and my cat. His name is Jim, if you were curious. Anyway, so my epiphany with this really boiled down to like the fundamental law of marketing, which is ask what your audience wants and then give it to them. And it's really that simple. And it's, for me, it was educating people. But for most artists, right, it's about understanding that music is a consequence-free, emotion-altering drug, right? We listen to happy music to kind of augment a good time. There are songs we listen to on the road to create, you know, a sense of, like, there's like travel albums that I think we all have in our lives, you know. I heard Simon & Garfunkel's America earlier. That's like a travel song that augments that emotion. You know, if you're going through a breakup, you listen to Woods of Ypres. Like, all this stuff, yeah, that was just for you, Sig. You know, but we listen to music because it alters emotion. And so that means, again, what does your audience want? To have some sort of emotional impact. How are you going to give it to them? How are you going to make it clear to them this is what we're doing, is we're altering your emotions? So there's a few false beliefs I want to knock down before we really get started. And I think the big one is just that social media is not just for young people, right? And this is a misconception I see all the time because people will be like, oh, well, I feel overwhelmed by TikTok or whatever. And like, I get it. Like when I first started doing TikTok, I was like, there's no way I'm going to ever learn how to do this. But then you look around and it's like, well, Rob Halford and Judas Priest, like, he's killing it on social media. Jinx from Coven, who like literally invented this in 1969, is killing it on social media. You know, you see people all the time in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who have figured it out, right? There is no sort of age limit on it, right? It's just about understanding what does your audience want and then giving it to them, right? The other big thing I want to talk about is you don't need ads to succeed. We'll be talking about ads a little bit later in this presentation, but I think a lot of people have this kind of fake idea of, oh, well, every artist who blows up, they just spent thousands of dollars on their Instagram and now they're famous. And it's like, that's not really how it works, right? Because ads are fuel on the fire, but they're not the fire itself. Do you know what I'm saying? Like with Bacon Spits, which again is like 95,000 people now, 95,368 if you were curious. Yeah, right? Like, I've spent, like, less than $500 on ads on that, and that was mostly, like, weird tests to, like, try different things, you know? The people you see blowing up, like, very frequently, I'll be working with a pop star, and they'll have never run ads before, right? And it's like, oh, okay. But because ads don't work if there's nothing further to dig into, and we'll dig into that later. Third is this idea that the market is not oversaturated. I think as a musician, it's really easy to go, oh, well, there's, 30 million other artists in my genre. What the fuck am I even doing, right? But if you're creating stuff that people actually want, asking what the audience wants, and then giving it to them, you will cut through. Look at a band like Kiss. Like, I own Kiss air guitar strings, right? There's so much weird Kiss shit out there. But the market has never been oversaturated because you can't overwhelm your audience. If you're continuing to give people things, they will go down that rabbit hole. We all love discovering a new artist and going down the rabbit hole. We all have favorite artists where we can keep learning more and more and more. And the more you do that, the further you go. People aren't getting overwhelmed. If I can post 5 times a day and keep growing, if you can post more than once every 2 weeks. So let's dig into that later too. But there's 3 secrets I really want to talk about here as we get going. The first, like we said before, how to create value, how to create content that people really resonate with, how to create content people engage with, and going from there. The second is that production quality is not the key, right? Is that you don't need to be having some sort of fancy camera. You don't need MJD to be making every piece of content if you're trying to break through. It helps, but it's not crucial. Or it's not life or death, I guess. And finally, we'll be talking about how to get people to pay attention. So you've created the content, you understand how it works, here's how we get it out there, here's how we engage with more folks. That's the breakdown of what we're getting into now. So in terms of creating value, there's a few core things, I think. First and foremost is this idea of creating with the fan in mind, right? And that operates on a few levels. First and foremost, it means creating content that actually makes sense on the platforms you're creating on. Right, which is to say, we all know that guy who's posting on Instagram the worst formatted shit you've ever seen. And it's like, yeah, obviously no one cares about this because the photos look terrible, the flyers are poorly formatted, it doesn't make sense, right? So you need to be thinking about that. The same way 20 years ago when you were pitching to magazines, you needed horizontal and vertical images to, to really like make it fit and work within the confines of that platform. You're now working within the confines of the social media platform, right? But I also think you have to think about creating with the fan in mind in terms of not just what is the emotional resonance, but what gives them more of what they want. Are we creating video content that keeps them watching? Are we creating carousel posts that tell a story? Because if you're not doing that and you're not, and this is the key, engaging with the people around you, what's the point? Because engagement is vital to creating value. Like I said before, it's about you, not me on social media. Social media is interesting because it's not really social anymore. Like if you remember Facebook in 2009, 2010, you were talking to your friends and people you knew, right? Now, if you open up your phone, you're looking at like talking heads like Ya Boy or like musicians trying to get you to check out their song or influencers or memes or whatever, right? There isn't this personal connection anymore. It's this one-to-many platform. But if you turn around and make it a one-to-one platform, suddenly you're going to get moving somewhere quickly. If you're replying to every comment, replying to every DM, you're suddenly making this sort of anonymous, almost faceless feeling thing into a thing that's dramatically more intimate and dramatically more effective in terms of getting people on board with who you are and what you're doing and going to that next place, But also, when you're building out your audience initially, that engagement is really crucial, which is to say, going, where do my fans hang out? And then going there. I talk a lot about this 100 comments a day strategy, where like if you want to start getting in front of fans in your niche on TikTok or Instagram, go comment on 100 relevant posts a day on either of those platforms, and people will start to check you out. Because if you go on your For You page on TikTok and start dropping comments, people are going to start to go, oh, who the hell is this guy? And they'll go check you out. And if you have meaningful content, they're going to engage with you. Same thing on Instagram. You look up a few relevant keywords, you go to some relevant recent posts, you start dropping comments, you start engaging. Suddenly, people start coming to you because it's about going where the fans are and then giving them a reason to kind of hook up with you and come back into your universe. Do you know what I'm saying? And if you're not doing that, like, you're just posting into the void. If you're not an active part of the community, if you're not finding ways to bring people in, then what are you doing? You know, a classic example of this even is like Amon Amarth, how on their music videos now, you want to dress up like a Viking and be in an Amon Amarth video? You're good. You're in. You know, like, you're bringing the fans in. You're taking this, like, anonymous giant rock band thing and turning it into everyone is involved, right? And if you're building that community, suddenly you're going to get somewhere. You know what I mean? And I think in terms of creating content and in terms of finding ideas, one of the best things you can do is really mimicking other bands, which is to say, let's say you're a folk punk band, right? Go check out other artists in your niche. Here, I brought up Bridge City Sinners, right? And let me hop over to the screen so I can point. So, oh man, I'm right in front of the mic. Okay. You know, and literally just going to their Instagram and going like, oh, okay, here's the type of content they're making. Let me use that for inspiration. Let me go, oh, okay, this is what's working for other people, and going from there. And not just like going through similar artists' Instagrams and trying to get ideas, but also realizing the data is out there. It's just not necessarily yours, which is to say, okay, you looked at their Instagram, you got some ideas, but then you look and you go, oh shit, this one has 200,000 views compared to what they normally get. What made that work in a way that the other stuff isn't necessarily working? What can I learn from that, you know? And even when you're creating new content, really asking yourself, or when you're consuming content, when you're scrolling, asking yourself, why did other people stop on this? You know, what made me stop on this? What made me like this? And trying to reverse engineer it from there. You know, the same, but it's almost exactly the same as with songwriting, right? When you're writing music, you're not pulling ideas out of the sky. You're not inventing your own scales. You're not, you know, well, it comes from having 20, 30 different influences and borrowing those ideas and distilling it into your own personal thing. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with content creation. Go and look at the 25 artists you think are the coolest and ask yourself, what do they do? What's working for them? What's resonating with them? And then going and adapting that to you, right? When I build out content strategies for artists, that's literally all I'm doing. Doing is going, okay, who does this artist make sense to tour with? Cool. Let's go look at those bands, those artists, and take those ideas and turn it into something that we can grow with. But of course, all of this has to be authentic. All of this has to help tell your story. Do you know what I mean? Which is to say, every piece of content not only does it have to be real, it doesn't have to be your entire life, but it has to be real, right? And it has to tie into the story you are trying to tell, right? Which is to say, if you're Bridge City Sinners and the concept is like, hey, this is fun music that's really good live and it's about like witch shit and there's like this DIY punk side, yada, 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 every single post ties into that. It ties into the fun of the live show. It ties into the DIY, you know, ethos of it. If you look at Ghost, right, everything ties into, we have this weird larger overall story, but also we play fucking arenas. And they're just leaning into like the rock star thing, you know, and they're showcasing that again and again. And you really have to ask yourself, when you're trying to create authenticity, what are the core brand messages I'm trying to put out there? What is the core of my persona as an artist, and going from there? And to be clear, because people get a little weird about this, your persona as an artist doesn't necessarily need to be your persona as you as a person, right? Like Chappelle Roan just came out and talked about how Chappelle Roan is like a kind of a character, right? It's not like all of her. And it's kind of the same, I think, for any creator. Like, I'm really into history. I never really talk about that on my social media. People don't really know about like the Winston Churchill obsession, right? But I've decided here are the core pieces of my brand that I want to put out in the world. Let me tell that story more than anything else. And I think a big key of authenticity and building that authenticity is realizing production quality is not the key. So the big thing to realize here is that lo-fi works, right? It doesn't always need to be the fanciest thing you've ever seen, you know? And sometimes having that like very lo-fi authenticity can really connect. Like I posted a bacon spits once where I looked like this, right? Yeah. This was like a day I like messed up my dose of antibiotics and I was all miserable. But I still created, and it still gave people a much deeper connection with me. And like you guys feel a deeper connection with me right now because I showed you this embarrassing picture, right? And it's like, if you can lean into that, if you can lean into sort of the warts and all approach, that's really going to help tell that story and get people to engage on that higher level. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you really have to think about how people consume content. You know, this idea that like, well, wait a second. A lot of people are scrolling Instagram while watching TV, or they're supposed to be at their jobs. That means they're not spending time like identifying every minor little issue you might have. They're instead being like, oh, wait, this is cool. Let me look at this longer. What is hooking them in, right? Consistently asking, what is hooking them in? What is making them want to spend more time on this, right? And that ties into the secret of the algorithm, which we'll talk about in a second. But there's kind of this key here that happens when we start to have this conversation about quality versus quantity of content. And like I said a few minutes ago, you don't get better at social media by posting once every 2 weeks. It's the same as songwriting. You don't become a better songwriter by writing 2 songs a year. If you talk to Grammy-winning songwriters, pretty much all of them sit down and write a song every day. Doesn't matter if they use it for something, it's just about practicing writing a fucking song, right? And it's the exact same with your content output. It's like building a muscle. It's only gonna get better if you're doing it consistently, and it's gonna make you go create it faster, right? Right now, creating content might feel like this very time-consuming, overwhelming thing, but if you keep doing it, you're gonna start to quickly figure out, oh wait, this is what connects, this is what makes it work, this is how I can start to kind of speed up my workflow a little bit and have it make sense. The other piece, I think, within quantity versus quality, people will bring up like, oh, well, if I post once a week, it gets 200 likes, and if I post 5 times a week, each post only gets 50 likes. There's 2 things to remember here. First of all, 5 times 50 is 250. That's way more engagement, right, rather than just the 200 likes once. But also, if you're trying to really win over an audience, you need to establish omnipresence. You need to constantly be in their faces. You need to constantly be showing up. You know, there's this thing in marketing about how people need to see something 7 times before they act on it. You know, like think about how you check out a band. Like I mentioned Bridge City Sinners. Cool, whatever. You're probably not going to go listen to them now. But if I mention them and then you see a social media post tomorrow and then in a few days you see what are the tour dates because they're coming here in November, I think, you know, and then you have a friend say something to you, then you're going to be like, fuck, I need to check out this band, right? Because they kept showing up in your life. You're hacking that with social media. You're creating omnipresence. You're creating a sense of, I am always here. I'm always around. Like, how many of you see my face every day? Yeah. You know, like, it's because I'm constantly there. I'm constantly putting myself out there. There's no reason you can't do the same. There's no reason, you know, and just because you can't afford a fancy PR campaign or you can't afford a radio campaign or whatever doesn't mean you can't be in people's faces by just looking at other people's content, using that to create your strategy, and then just showing up again and again and again and again, and establishing that omnipresence, that sense of being everywhere, right? Because that really ties into the concept, the final concept I want to get into here, which is getting people to pay attention. One sec. So I think what you really want to start to master, or start to understand, is how content distribution works. And specifically, what a lot of people don't really get is how every social media algorithm works, which is almost entirely dictated by the amount of time people are spending on a post, right? If people just thumb past your post, it's not going to get distributed. It's not going to get shown to more people because Instagram is going to say, oh, people don't care about that, whatever. Whereas if people watch your video for 30 seconds or they go through your carousel post, then guess what? Instagram will say, or TikTok or whatever, will say, oh, people are spending time on this. We should show it to more people because it keeps them on the platform, and that means we can show them more ads. And this is, for the record, the exact same way Spotify works. If people listen to your song in full, and a lot of people start doing that, then suddenly Spotify goes, oh, people like this song. We should show it to more people. Whereas if you're showing up on playlists and people are skipping you, then they're going to go, oh, people don't like this song. We don't need to show that to anyone, you know? I once had a Spotify exec say, it was very creepy. He said, Spotify wants to control everything that goes into your ear. which is like weird, but also it makes sense. Like that's their goal, is to dominate our ears. The same thing with Instagram and TikTok. They want to dominate our eyes because they're trying to show us more ads. They're trying to keep us on their platform longer. They want to gather data, all this stuff. And so you have to think about that as you're creating content. And this is, for the record, why carousel posts and video are so important. And with carousel posts in particular, when we tie back into like authenticity and storytelling, they're hugely effective because what you can do with a really good carousel post is almost make it like a zine. A carousel post on its own can tell a story because what you can do, and this is really key to understand, is you can put up like a really good live shot that just looks good on your feed. Because think about how people create content. You discover a new artist and you just kind of, first thing you do a lot of the time is you just thumb through their Instagram to understand who they are and what they're about, which is why having a consistent story is key, because if it's just all over the place, it's all over the place, right? But use those carousel posts to kind of tell the story. That first picture is the great live shot or whatever. And then the next picture is the flyer for the show you're playing next week. Then you have like the fun behind the scenes video. Then you have another live shot. Then you have a relevant meme. Then you have another flyer. And then you suddenly use those 20 posts you can put now in the carousel, and people are spending more time on it and realizing, oh, the people who swipe through that carousel, they're the super fans, so you can give them a little more. You can give them the weird behind-the-scenes tour picture where you don't look your best, because that helps build the relationship with you as a creator, with you as an artist, right? And that's, I think, really the core of distribution that people are missing out on, is understanding, why aren't people spending more time on my posts? How do I get them to spend more time on my posts? But also realizing, how can I tap into other people's audiences? How can I tap into other markets? You know, how can I go, wait a second, what if I do a collaborative post with another artist in my niche and create something with them that's really powerful and effective, right? Because again, if you're building that community, if you're reaching out to other people, you're gonna get somewhere. Whereas, and this is important to realize, if it's not directly tied into your music content-wise, you might get more distribution because you posted a cute picture of a dog or a really funny meme or something. But those people who like you because of the dog or the meme or whatever, they're not there for your music, right? You created something that might have gotten a lot of likes, but it didn't get the right people liking it, or it didn't get them liking for the right reason. So the algorithm's gonna be like, oh, that meme is really funny and you did a great job on that. Let me show it to more people. But it's people who don't care about the songs. So what the hell? You know? What does work in terms of mastering distribution is gratitude. Is, again, if you want to tap into other people's audiences, what can you give to them? What value can you generate? Can you lift up someone else? You know, maybe you have 2,000 Instagram followers. Do something with your friend who has 1,000. That's different people than who follow you, right? You're getting in front of them now, right? How do you express gratitude to your fan base? One of the most effective tools for that is just running giveaways. And not just doing giveaways where you on your own are giving away a shirt, but doing something like they did with Gussapolooza, where you get a bunch of people tied into the same thing to give something away. So if you want to, instead of you just giving away a shirt, you find 3 other artists in your niche, right, who all kind of do the same thing, and you all go and give away shirts as one big package, and suddenly you're growing from their fans, they're growing from your fans, and you're getting in front of way, way more people. And by the way, that's like the best way to collect emails for your list. And that's like one of the most important things to mastering distribution and getting people to pay attention. Because with an email list, even if your open rate isn't awesome, what does happen is everyone sees the subject line. So everyone knows, oh, you're going on tour. Oh, you have a new song out, whatever. And those are your super fans. And you can give them things via that email list that you can't easily do on social media. You know, you can give those people this weird unreleased song you don't really think about, but here, download it. Why not? You know, you can give people sort of advanced information or make them feel like part of a larger club. And again, build up that community, build up that sense of connection, and help bring people forward. Email lists are one of the most important things to understand and to have if you're building that distribution, and just reaching out consistently to people, because they're going to keep showing up. They're going to keep knowing about you. You're establishing that omnipresence. Not only are you on their social media when they turn it on, it's in their inbox, which most people are checking every day, multiple times a day. You know, getting in people's faces, understanding that gratitude piece. You gave them something, you got their email, now you're getting somewhere. Now, the final piece I want to talk about is advertisements. And, like I said, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty. But the key thing to understand about ads on all these platforms is they are trying to get whatever goal you set for it as cheaply as possible. Which means if you're trying to get conversions over to Spotify, they're going to do that in the cheapest way possible within the targeting you've done. And so that means, let's say you're like a very underground cult black metal artist. You could be marketing to Cradle of Filth fans, which is fine, right? But that's a much more mainstream band. If you're trying to do underground black metal put out by like dudes who operate out of caves or whatever, I know those people. Shout out Nico. But you want to be targeting, you want to be thinking, how do I target the underground fans? How do I target the early adopters with my ads? Do you know what I'm saying? You want to be targeting the Fist fans rather than the Cradle of Filth fans when you're doing that. You're going, not what is the biggest possible audience I can access, but what is the most relevant possible audience I can access. The exact same thing we talked about before with when you're marketing pictures of when you're posting pictures of dogs, yeah, that might get more people to like it, but it's not the right people. The other key with ads is that they're not a marketing strategy in and of themselves at all. If you have one post and you put $3,000 behind it, and let's say it's a perfect, amazing post and it's getting tons of conversions to Spotify, if there's nothing for people to engage with more deeply, if there isn't a larger universe, then you just wasted $3,000. Because they might go listen to your song a couple, 3 times, and that's cool. But okay, what else was there for them? There was no rabbit hole for them to go down. There was nothing deeper for them to engage with. You just posted or created an ad, but it's not going to go any further than that. The artists I see who are getting further with ads are the ones where it's like, oh, I discovered this thing, and now I can go deeper. And I really need you to keep that in mind before you end up wasting a bunch of money too early on. The real, strategy of promoting music, in my eyes, is first, have great songs, build a community around it, build great content around it that serves that community, those people you connected with, et cetera, et cetera. And then from there, then ads and all that other stuff start to make sense, right? And also realize with ads, they're way more powerful in terms of paid marketing than pretty much anything else you can do because you own the data, which we all know is important because you can retarget those people later and you can see what works and what doesn't work. And you can do the testing and optimizing, right? Or the person you hire can do the testing and optimizing. I think when you're hiring out for music PR or something, or you're paying to get on playlists, you don't know if that's going to be the perfect right thing for you. You can go and get in Consequence of Sound or what's the big Canadian one? Exclaim? Exclaim? Cool. I know about Canada. See? But if you're the smallest artist on Exclaim that day, you're still going to get 30 clicks on your post. That's not people don't use music journalism to discover new artists anymore. It's really about deepening relationships with artists. And it's kind of the same thing with paying to get on playlists. Editorial playlists and stuff are great, absolutely. But if you pay to get on a playlist that isn't really exactly right for you, and people start skipping your song, or you start getting sorted with the wrong types of artists, then you're killing yourself in the algorithm because people aren't going to be discovering you in relevant places anymore. If you're getting skipped, Spotify's going to go, oh, people don't like this music. We don't need to show this to anyone. And then you've shot yourself in the foot. And that's, I think, where ads really start to matter. So we've talked about a lot of different things in the last, how long has it been? Yeah, in the last 30 minutes. This has been kind of like drinking from a fire hose. I know I get excited and I have a lot of examples and But I also think that most of what we talked about here is pretty doable. Most of what we talked about isn't insanely high level. It's just understanding what does your audience want, where do they hang out, and then giving it to them. Because if you're not doing that, what the hell are you doing? Because really, again, what it boils down to is generating value by creating engaging content and engaging with your audience, taking social media from one to many to one, and using the tactics and stuff we have to do that, to create authentic content, right? To go, what's already working? That data is out there. It's not necessarily mine, but that data is out there. and let me learn from that and tell my story consistently, right? Again and again, so people right away can understand this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what I'm doing, right? And then using that to help build your community and to grow with your friends to kind of get attention and to get in front of more people and to build off of each other's audiences around that community. So you're getting shout outs and you're giving shout outs, because the more you give, the more you get. It's not one-to-one, but that's how it is, right? If you're not someone actively trying to help other people grow, they're not gonna actively try to help you grow, right? Rising tide lifts all ships. And if you're the focal point of that, and you're the person doing that, you become the focal point of the scene. You become the person people are talking about. And you see that happen again and again in any type of scene. I know some of you might be saying, oh, well, that doesn't happen for, 8-bit Nintendo Core in Ontario. But like, it does. You just have to dig deeper, and you just have to help people more. Like, my cousin literally invented Nintendo Core. He's in Anamanaguchi. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, James. Shout out James. But, like, no one else was doing that, but, like, they found ways to engage with that audience and to build with their friends and to create something meaningful. Point being, you have a choice. And you can keep screaming into the void. You can keep making those posts that get 3 likes or 25 views and spending all your time kind of with no one engaging and, oh, I spent hours and hours to do this, whatever. Or you can become an artist who meaningfully connects with their fans consistently, again and again, over time. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Let's do questions, and then after that, I have a cigar so we can take pictures. Yeah, what's up? Oh, do we have a mic? We have a mic. Wait, okay, I'm gonna drink some water.
Of course.
Ask your question.
Amazing. So I think I can speak for a lot of people by asking,
1 second, Sig is trying to get me to... Oh, thank you so much, yeah.
Basically, now you're saying like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, right? If you're reaching out to the wrong people, or if you're doing like all of these, I don't want to say wrong things, but just the things that aren't helping you advance, right? Now, is there such thing as a dead account? Is it always recoverable to like unshoot yourself in the foot and connect with that audience? Or is it better to kind of restart? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there definitely is such a thing as a dead account, which is like I said, like I talk to people like this where, oh, I have 40,000 followers because I posted a cute video of my dog and it got 3 million views. Yeah, like, no, all those people who followed you wanted more dog content. I have a friend whose music I help. His wife is like this really famous porn star. And he was like, oh, well, she has like 6 million followers. She could just post about my band and then I'm fucking good to go. And I'm like, yeah, but people don't follow her for discovering new music.
Yeah.
And it's like the same, like if you built your account on the wrong shit, what the fuck? Like people aren't gonna care. And I think you see a lot of like TikTok comedians especially try to use their TikTok to promote their music. And it's like, The only way to really recover that is if, in the dog scenario, if you found a way to like make music content that also had your cute dog. But that's real hard.
Thank you. That helps. Thank you.
Right. Sorry, I forgot about that part. So I'm curious. So I make content for my music, obviously, but then I'm also a vocal coach. Oh my god, classy. And I also make content as me as a vocal coach. But I ended up privating those videos. Actually, that was something I was going to mention about your thing. Is like I think if you sometimes private the videos, you can maybe recover the account because now the algorithm isn't thinking it's a vocal coaching page. But my question is, I want to build my music fans, but I also wanted to build my vocal coaching work, and I wondered if you thought that was possible to have 2 possible goals with one page, or do you think it's better to just separate the 2 and live on TikTok because I have 2 accounts and I have to do it all day?
I think it would have to be 2 of everything. Okay. Because I think that while like as an artist, you definitely can be like if you're like a cool guitar band, you can definitely like have content out there sometimes that's like, here's my guitar warm up, or here's my gear rack, or whatever. But that's kind of for like a super fan thing. You know, I don't see anyone who's really successfully doing that, and you can definitely use your music account to point to your vocal coaching, but I think it's really just like people follow for two separate reasons. I've definitely like toyed with that of like, if I started a band, could I use Bacon's Bits for that? But again, people aren't trying to discover, like, it's music related, but nobody wants to hear about like the weird hardcore band I want to start with Andy Inside Out. Like,
Yeah, I think you're right. It is two different fan bases, so that makes sense.
exactly, and you can't really serve two different fan bases that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
So there's this focus on authenticity that can't be ignored. And, you know, there are also, I think, a lot of trends that people are trying to follow because it worked for somebody else. Can you maintain your authenticity, or what is the best way to do that while also trying to get some of the groundswell from these trends, like the lip sync videos, that kind of thing?
Yes and no. The trend, like the video you create has to be real to you, right? Which is to say, I used this example the other day in Colombia, where like, okay, so like Brat was like the biggest meme of the summer, right? And people were doing all this Brat content or whatever. If you found a way to tie that into your music, that got people to engage. But if you were just posting a Brat meme to post a Brat meme, whatever, right? So it always has to be an authentic perception on the trend. You don't need to do every trend. And the other thing to understand about trends in general on social media is they show you're part of an in-group, right? Which is to say, if you're posting the Brat meme, it shows you know about cool stuff going on in pop music. If you post like a really funny local band meme tied into your music, it shows you understand something fundamental and funny or weird about local music, right? So I like to use trends to show people, oh, hey, we're part of the same thing as you. You know, and you can also use that when you're trying to tell your story. I managed to span Autumn Kings from Windsor. And, you know, what they'll, like, Joe, the singer, is really into anime. So we're creating a bunch of content that kind of ties Dragon Ball Z catchphrases and other kind of famous anime catchphrases that people kind of know into the content we're creating. So it's like, oh, hey, you can kind of get part of the story that, like, a lot of the songwriting storytelling that Joe is doing is kind of a little bit anime inspired, but also, you know, it's about the music, you know? And so we're accessing that anime audience, and we have fans now who kind of got into it because they're like, oh, some of your videos look like those Linkin Park anime compilations from 2003. But, like, that's kind of how it works, if that makes sense.
Right, so it's not going so far into that trend or into that other community that it's taking the focus away from.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, because people can tell if you're just doing stuff to get attention, and they're not going to care, right? Like, it has to be clear that it's like, maybe this is a funny thing, but it's tied into what I'm trying to do, and it's tied into who I am as an artist.
Right on, right on.
We're making Kevin walk. We got a question over here.
Hey, yeah. So you're posting on TikTok and on Instagram all the time. Are you implementing different strategies, and how are they different if you do? Yeah.
Really good question. I think with pretty much all content creation, if like the bulk of your content is vertical video, which it probably should be, but even like all photo carousel posts, which you can do on TikTok now too, what I do is I build everything first on TikTok, and then I kind of take that and I just run it everywhere else. I don't really worry about catering too much to the platform because vertical video content is vertical video content, and it gets people to stop for the same reasons, you know? And trends that happen on TikTok are also happening on Instagram and vice versa, because it's all the same people consuming the same things, especially sort of in like the DIY music early adopter space. You know what I mean? Like they're all kind of looking at the same stuff. You know, so at least for music, I think it's fine that way.
So I think one of the challenges for bands like us is getting people to care about your music. And like you talked about value. And I think that's just the challenge is getting people to take value from your content if they don't know who you are or they don't know your music. So I guess my question is for bands, how do you find it is a good way to give value to the fans or people that are scrolling on TikTok or Instagram?
So the core question is, what do you want people to get out of your music? Like, tell me, what do you want people to get out of Cut Bear?
I want them to relate to the music and feel that connection to the music.
But what in the music are they relating to?
The emotion,
Exactly.
the lyric.
Exactly. And what are kind of the core emotions of Cut Bear? I mean, I'm interviewing you now, but
Yeah. I'd say it's like a kind of like a fierce. It depends on the song, but it's kind of. There's a whole bunch of emotions, but I'd say like love or kind of ferocity.
okay. Yeah.
Those kinds of
Sure.
strong emotions.
Yeah. So again, so you're marketing, like the whole goal really boils down to marketing with emotion. And being like, with Autumn Kings, we have a song where the music video is like them in a car rocking out. And so we have a bunch of videos that are like, this is a song for driving down the highway with the boys. And suddenly that establishes value because suddenly it's like, oh, this is a song for driving down the highway with the boys. This is kind of what I want. You know what I mean? Or, oh, this is a song for like when you're feeling really fucking sad and it's going to make you feel a certain way, right? Because like that's the value you're bringing as an artist is you are helping heighten or empathizing with people's emotions, right? And so the content needs to kind of tie into how do we make people feel that? But also it could tie into stuff like, I saw you guys play last night. It was really fucking fun. It was like a party, right? It was a blast. So you can create content that goes, hey, if you come to our show, it's going to be a fucking party. You're going to have the best time, you know? And then if you can consistently communicate that, people are going to start to come more. Like one of my favorite marketing strategies, full stop, what are the easiest things you can do to get more people to your shows? Probably should have put this in the main talk. Is film a really cool high energy live set where you're going to have a good time, like here, where people are rocking out or whatever, and then make like vertical video snippets of that and just start posting it. Because if you keep putting out in the world like, hey, this is a really fun show, and if you come, you're going to have the best time, and it's going to be a party, then people want to go to that. They don't want to go to shows that it's like, oh, they're all just going to stand there and be boring and whatever. You know what I mean? Like people want to go to shows, like people go to shows to have a good time or to feel an emotion, right? It doesn't even have to necessarily be a party. Like if you look at someone like Mitski, do we listen to Mitski in Canada? Do someone? Okay, hell yeah, okay. So like that's a really emotional, sad show, right? But like they communicate with live clips that help you understand you're going to go see Mitski and you're going to cry, right? And it's like that's what you're highlighting is what are the emotions you're going to experience at the live show? What are the emotions you're going to experience listening on your own at home? Because that's really what it all ties into.
Thank you. Yeah, that definitely clarifies some things. Thank you.
Right behind you. Over here, okay.
I just had a question. So a lot of people's friends' bands that I know, they post like every day on TikTok trying to like discover a new audience and like help a new audience find them. Like the post you mentioned, like this is a song for road tripping with your boys or whatever. But they don't post the same stuff on Instagram. Like what are your thoughts on that? Like posting that daily stuff on TikTok, using TikTok to get people to discover you, but then keeping your Instagram for like your fans?
I don't think it really matters. Like if everything is on brand, everything is on brand. You can just keep running it. Like, because I think, first of all, that feels to me like kind of a dated strategy because I feel like TikTok doesn't have the discoverability now that it did a year ago.
It's working for the people I know.
Oh, I know,
but-
I know.
Okay.
Like, it's definitely still works for certain people, but I just think, like, you need to kind of be doing the work for the fans. Not everyone is on TikTok, and also not everyone is on Instagram, which is kind of why you need to be hitting everywhere. This is also why I think YouTube Shorts is really, really, really important, because that's where people under 25 consume video content, and nobody at TikTok wants to say that out loud. But, like, you know, I would just put everything everywhere all the time just to show up as much as possible. You know, like, yeah, you can get that discoverability on TikTok, and yeah, that works, but those algorithms work in functionally the same way. You know, there's definitely certain genres that do better on one or the other. Like, if you're making, like, weirdo hyperpop, like, TikTok is definitely your place more than Instagram. And if you're making hard rock, Instagram is much more your place than TikTok. But why not do both?
I think we got time for one more. Sorry.
Aw.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We got to get a band in here.
So, as a guy in multiple bands, and having to play shows all the time is my main kind of source of making money from being a musician, but also needing to release music on a consistent schedule. How can I do a good marketing strategy for a single or like an EP while also doing a good marketing strategy for a show or a tour without mixing the messages?
I mean, why not mix the messages? Like, one of the best ways to promote an upcoming show is to be like, we have a new song or a new EP that we're going to be playing for the first time live. You know, like, if you have a new song you're pushing and you also have the show flyer, okay, cool. We're going to just post the show flyer. We're going to put the song as the audio on the post, or, oh, okay, let's take some old live footage, cut it up, throw the new song on it, and then in the caption be like, and come see us on September 27th at London, Ontario.
I actually have a show on September 27th.
Hell yeah, where?
Ottawa.
Is everyone going to go?
You better.
But yeah, but like, I feel like that would really be how I do it, right? Like, with the Squela Grind, who I manage, for example, like, yeah, they play like 200 shows a year. So like, there's always a show strat marketing going on, but they've also released, 10 singles in the last year or something. And it's like, we're just doing both. We're just posting a snippet of the video, and then the snippet of the video cuts over to the flyer, and it's like, okay, because again, why are people coming to something? They are coming to something for new music, right? Or they're coming for the music and how it makes them feel, like we talked about before. So you need to kind of fuse those things. And people don't really care if the live video you're posting is completely synced up to the music, so, fuck it. Okay, if anyone has other questions, we'll go over here and answer more questions and do pictures and all that good stuff, if that works for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.